Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Phillips. This is a very early on tutorial for a board game I've been working on. Um, this is the model made from some chess pieces and some Magic the Gathering cards in my closet. Obviously, this is not a finished product, but I think the rules are at a point where I can make a video explaining the game. Thanks for everybody who's play tested with me so far. So the way this works, it's a turn-based game that has sets of turns within rounds. So you can flip a coin or whatever to decide, but at the beginning of the game, one person will have the first turn in that round. You will alternate turns until the round ends, and then for the next round, the next player in order will go first in that round. We'll cover the turn structure in just a second. You note the board here is a hexagon shape, honeycomb shape, and this can be played amusingly with 2, 3, 4, or 6 people very easily without spending too much time. You can imagine, obviously, you need a third color, but these 3 corners are symmetrical. That's how you would start thinking about a 3-person starting position, and so on. Sorry for the camera work. So, this is a game with a little bit of hidden information and a tiny bit of resource management. So at the beginning of the game, you'll each get dealt a hand of 6 cards, and then in every round, you will draw 3 more, except for the first round because you're starting with 6 cards. So, and also you'll have, I don't have an indicator for it, 1 free move action per round that just resets. Okay, so your options when it's your turn. So, say the first round starts, we'll say that I'm going first. And for the sake of this, you can always pass your turn. The round will end once all players pass in a row. So, of course, you can pass. That's kind of the first sort of non action. The next action is you can use your free move, which I don't have a token here. You'd flip over. And you can move any of your pieces to 1 adjacent hex. Note that with a hex board, there are 6 adjacent to any pawn. So you have 1 free move per round, just to encourage some action and try to prevent stalemates. Your second action is you'll have cards in your hand, and as I said, I'm using some Magic the Gathering basic lands as proxies for the element cards. Is you could discard, and we'll say this card in this case, 1 card to make that same move of a pawn to any adjacent square. So from here to any one of these 6 squares. That's the second move of spending 1 card to move. And of course, because it's turn-based, you'd be going back and forth. Oh yes, and just to be clear, this does work like chess. Important to mention. Your goal is to capture all of your opponent's pieces. So in the beginning here, you're both working towards the middle to try to gain some space advantage. So those are the first 2 ideas. You can pass. 3 ideas. You can pass. You can use your 1 free move per round. Imagine the token here. Or you can discard any of the cards in your hand to make that same move of a piece to an adjacent square. I'm going to just make some moves to put the pieces closer together to talk about the next set of moves. This is not a particularly realistic gameplay situation, but that's okay. The final set of moves are the special spells. And the way these work, again, as I said, I'm using some cards from another very popular game. So we have, and ignore the text on them, right? We have an air, fire, water, and earth colored card. Note that in principle, this works with a poker deck because it's just 4 suits. And the numbers I chose to be the same so that it does in principle work with a poker deck. So this third move is, in your hand of cards, you can play 2 cards which match and discard them. A little side note, there's just one discard pile. Once the deck runs out, you just reshuffle. So you can play 2 cards that match, and you get their effects. So the effects in order, perhaps most aggressively, if you play 2 of the fire cards, which I know do not say fire on them, that allows one of your pieces, instead of a normal capture, like chess, which would be if I were making just a move of this pawn, it could move and capture. If I discard 2 fire cards, one of my pieces captures without moving, and not your own pieces. One captures an opponent's piece without moving that is 1, 2, or 3 steps away, but only in a straight line with no obstruction. So in this case, right, 1, 2 could capture. But if this pawn had been here, sorry, this piece couldn't have captured because although it's 3 steps away, they aren't a straight line of moves. So that's the very aggressive fire spell. The second spell, using the green cards, is the earth spell. And the earth spell is that one of your pieces can construct 1 or 2 walls adjacent to itself. If you choose to build 2 walls, the 2 walls have to touch. And you can't put a wall underneath a piece already on the board. You can put a wall in the center square, and it remains the special center square, which I'll mention in a second. So for instance, if I discarded 2 green cards, this piece could construct 2 walls like this, or 2 walls like this, but you can't split the walls, and the walls cannot get more than 1 step away, and they can't go under other pieces. Now, the way the walls work, I'll try to be very brief about this. So the walls block both normal movement and shooting fireballs through them. So for instance, these 2 pieces could not fireball each other because there's a wall between them. These 2 could because they do have a line around the wall. Okay. And then thirdly, if you play 2 water cards, this spell is similar to the earth effect. We'll use a different pawn to show it. You can place 1 or 2 water pieces on the board. They still have to touch. However, they can be up to 2 squares away from the piece that is making them. So let's say this one's making them. We could put our 2 waters down like this. We could put just 1 if we wanted to. We could put the 2 like this. We can't split them. Sorry. We can't split them. And we can't go more than 2 steps away. So like this square hiding that extra one. This doesn't work because it'd be 3 steps. But these are both good. These are both good. Similar to the earth pieces, if a square is flooded, or if a hex is flooded, then you can't walk through it normally, but you could shoot fireballs through it. Right? So in this case, this piece and this piece could hit each other. With our last card, we note the air effect. The air effect lets, instead of the normal movement, either with your free move per round or by discarding 1 of anything, it lets you move 3 steps unless that movement is, we'll just say, impacted by something, in which case it's only 2 steps. Now, the air move, very importantly, can do a lot of things that are related. So, if I were discarding, said, 2 air cards, now I could just move a piece 3 steps. So, saying we started here, we could just go 1, 2, 3. However, we can only go 2 steps if we're doing any of the following things, which are the air move allows you to jump over water. And I note these things combine, so you can jump over water and capture. If you played 2 air cards, you can move just 2 steps to just capture. You can move 2 steps, including jumping up onto a wall. And in case I forgot to mention it, moving off of a wall is a normal movement. So when you're stepping down, you can do that with your normal movement, and it doesn't affect being 3 steps with an air movement. So this pawn could go 1, 2, but if it were already standing up here, it could go 1, 2, 3. So as the 4 special moves, then I add this center star square. The rule with it is at the beginning of a round, meaning after both players have passed, and then the first turn marker would move. If you're holding the star tile, you get an extra card instead of the 3 you would both draw from the deck, which obviously provides a very significant advantage and creates a lot of the pressure to win the center, because if you simply give up the center, you'll be in a very poor strategic position after that. So that is the main body of the tutorial. Some quick notes that I think cover all of our edge cases. So if you're standing on a wall, or if either piece is standing on a wall, fireballs work as long as there is what would be a line of sight. So let's say this piece is standing on a wall. It could shoot a fireball here, and it could be shot back because there's no wall immediately between them. If I were standing on this wall and it were here, likewise it works. If I were standing here, we're not in a straight line. However, if I was standing on this wall here, you couldn't shoot between these 2 squares because there is an additional wall in the middle. You we work to make the rules very intuitive, so you can imagine if you're standing back from the edge of a wall, you can't see someone standing under the wall. So that's the little rule of geometry with the fire pieces. And again, the wind pieces, it's 3 steps if it's not interacting with anything. It's 2 steps if you're either jumping up onto a wall or over a wall, and or capturing, and or going over water. And so far, I think that covers anything. If there's any questions or ambiguities, please ask. I'll try to clarify everything. As I said, I reached the point where I felt comfortable making a short little video discussing this idea a bit. I'll add the tentative name in the title. So, yeah, again, any questions, anything, feel free to ask. Thank you very much to anybody who watched clear through. This is Joshua Phillips, and have a nice day.